Hello, this is Greg Allison from Green Greg's coming to you on the 3rd of January 2021. And this may be the most important video you've ever watched, because I'm going to talk to you tonight about how to survive a nuclear holocaust, how to survive any kind of radiological event if you're not at ground zero. That's an important distinction. So what I'm going to talk about is safe zones, bug out zones, but mostly we're going to go into the details of all this so you'll understand what it is, so you'll know what I'm talking about. We're going to talk about 3 types of basic nuclear events. We're going to talk about a nuclear war. We're going to talk about just briefly, a plant meltdown, but what I deem to be the most significant radiological and most probable radiological event will be when the spent fuel pool at the nuclear power plants, when they go evaporate all their water and catch fire, because there's more radioactive material there than anywhere else. And that can happen with a grid down situation. And I consider it the most probable and the most dangerous event of all. So we're going to talk about all these things. And then we're going to go in and talk about shelters, what you got to live in, how you can survive these things, various shelters. So we'll do the locations and we'll do the shelters. So but to understand the shelters, you've got to understand the radiation. So we're going to explain what radiation is and how to protect yourself from it. So the bad news is that these events are actually very probable. The bad news is that they're far more probable than you might have imagined, because today we live in a world where we're not just the United States and Russia with weapons facing each other. China's in the game, Iran's getting in the game, North Korea's in the game. It's a multiplayer world now. And we had so many close calls just between the United States and Russia, it wasn't funny. And then there's India and Pakistan, who seem to be squaring off against each other, maybe India to China. So this dynamic is getting increasingly worse. Israel, Iran, US, it's getting complex. It's too complex. That makes it more concerning. But as I said, that's not my biggest concern. My biggest concern is that the power grid goes down. If the power grid goes down, we've got a real problem with the spent fuel rod pools. That's what I was trying to say a minute ago, at the nuclear power plants. So we'll talk about that. And I won't go into as much detail on that specifically. We'll talk more about the survival of it. I've talked about that in great detail in other videos on power grid defense. But hey, as I've always said, when I started my power grid defense conferences, first thing I always tell my crowd is, don't worry. No matter how hard things get, no matter how arduous it is, no matter how impossible everything seems in front of you, always rest with the assurance that there is a silver cloud or silver lining around every mushroom cloud. That's never been more appropriate than what I'm about to tell you. Yeah, mushroom clouds are the worst thing you can imagine, right? But we're going to talk about surviving it, because a nuclear war is survivable. A lot of people actually survive, at least initially. And in fact, the worst thing about it may indeed be loss of the grid. So we're going to go into all that here. Now, all that said, let's get into it here. I'm going to do some sharing. Oh yeah, before we go into that, there's other good news. Not only is there good news that you can survive it, I have a great special, $100 off of a 4-week special, a 4-week supply of food that lasts 25 years. You get breakfast, lunch, and dinner. 2,000 calories per day will make you a winner. It's real food. It's freeze dried, so it's lightweight, easy to store. You get 2 of these, and you can click on go to prepwithgreg.com. That's where you find this deal. You get the $100 off. Go to prepwithgreg.com, and then you can click on the My Patriot Supply logo at the top and find all kind of other food deals, including gluten-free. People have asked about proteins, fruits, and veggies, and you can find all kind of other prepping supplies that you will probably want to have when the grid goes down, when it hits the fan. All these things that can come at us. Holy smoke, guys! Right now, with the internal strife we're having in this country, people are marching on Washington with the international tensions we've got with China and Russia. Yeah, things might be happening. So keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel. That's what I tell everybody to do on my channel. And affectionately, I call my followers swivel heads, because I know you do keep your eyes wide open and head on a swivel. So I'm going to help you get through this, because this proposition of my channel help you survive, thrive, and stay out of the hive. And that's where we're going on the surviving part, especially right here and now. And so I'm going to do a lot more videos on these kind of topics of surviving, thriving, gardening, eating from the weeds and trees for freeze. And we'll be talking about what's going on in the world, so you know what's coming at you. And I'll talk about bug out, bug in, bug out van, bug out bus, bug out bikes, and probably more into this in the future. So with all that said, to see all my various videos, make sure you subscribe to my channel, bang the bell, the update notification bell, and click all. That way, hopefully you can see what's coming in my videos and the world around us. All right, all that said, let's do a little screen share here. Let's go into Oogle Google. Let's go Oogle Google, Google Oogle. All righty here. So we're going to talk about radiation, what it is. There is two forms of radiation. There is ionizing and non-ionizing. Basically, that's the two basic forms. It's radiation that will ionize things or not. Maybe I should get out of the screen share here for a second. Yeah, so ionizing radiation is radiation that when it penetrates matter, will leave an ionization path through it. What that means is it's stripping off electrons and leaving a charged trail of particles through that tissue, if it's your tissue, or through electronics. It can cause electronics to fail. It can break the molecular bonds in your own tissue and mess up your DNA. It can kill you if it's sufficient dose, or it can cause you to have cancer later down the road. Ionizing radiation is the bad stuff. Non-ionizing radiation is like radio waves and light. I'm going to show a lot more of it, but I just wanted to kind of explain that before I get into this. And so there's various basic particles that we talk about and types of radiation. You know, normally you hear people talk about alpha, beta, and gamma rays. So gamma rays are actually different than alpha and beta. See, alpha rays, these are directly ionizing, okay? These are particles because they have a charge on them. They have mass. And so the alpha wave is actually a helium nucleus, essentially. It's two protons and two neutrons, as you can see here. And but fortunately, because they have so much mass, unless they're accelerated to higher velocities, they're more easily stopped. So these are characteristics of what's called an alpha decay. And we're not going to go and talk in nuclear physics today, but they can be absorbed by a few centimeters of air or the skin, paper, something small might stop them. If they come about through a nuclear process, there'll be a little bit more energetic. It'll take a little bit more to stop the alpha particles. This is the alpha particle with two protons and two neutrons. Something thin stops it. A beta particle can be stopped with something fairly thin too. But maybe it's got more energy. The beta particle. Oh yeah, let's talk about this too. On the alpha particle, sometimes we talk about with these particles how much the speed of the light it goes. Well, we'll talk about that more down when we get to cosmic rays. But it don't have to go, but just a fraction of the speed of light to be very significant. Relativistic terms, what we're talking about. Beta particles are really electrons and positrons, which is the antimatter version of an electron. Electron's negative, positron is positive. And yeah, they've been created in the lab. They exist. They have very low mass, but these are what we call atomic particles, and the nuclear particle way of looking at physics. You could say they're waves, but there's a lot of debate about that. And I say potassium 40 has a lot of this, right? And they occur from what's called beta decay, which we're not going to go into that either. And we're not going to go into radiation and none of that kind of stuff here. Now you want me to spare you of that. We're just going to tell you what these guys can do. So, like I said, fortunately, alphas and betas can be stopped by thinner stuff. It's the gamma rays that are more penetrating. And then there's energetic neutrons, of course, which go into some depth too. So we're going down in here. Indirectly ionizing. gamma rays are in this category. Basically, let's look at radiation. We're going to open up this chart right here. Bam. This is just electromagnetic waves. This is photons, light particles, accelerated to higher, within different higher frequencies. They all go the same speed. Light particles travel at the speed of light. But the higher you go in the frequency, the more energy they have. This is visible light right here. This is the stuff that you're seeing me through the screen you're looking at. This is visible light. As you know, as you get over to ultraviolet light, that stuff can burn you a little bit. And microwaves can heat you up. If you put enough power behind them, they can burn too. As can light. Just get a magnifying glass and you'll discover you get enough regular light, you'll burn something with that too. Well, same way with microwaves. Microwaves, let me get that out of my screen there. Oh my gosh, get off my screen. So what we have here is, let me scroll down a bit more. The bar was come up when I scroll down. Most unfortunate. It's trying to explain stuff to me. I'm trying to explain it to you, so I don't need that. Don't need its help. All right, so what we've got here is, you have non-thermal effects in these lower frequency, basically radio waves are here. This is under radio waves, static fields, power lines. And then you get AM radio, FM radio, Wi-Fi. See, Wi-Fi is actually in the microwave range, see? And their cell phones, 5G is somewhere right around here. Everybody's talking about 5G. Well, it's between a microwave and the lowest light. So what kind of effects you get? Photochemical over here. If you get enough, you can excite electrons in the photoelectric effect. Do you see fluorescent tubes? This kind of effects you can get with this. Get over here, ultraviolet. We know this can burn. X-rays. See, X-rays are very energetic. We know they can go through you and they can give you radiation. These are ionizing. See, where you see this ionizing band here, it means it can break chemical bonds. This is where it damages DNA by breaking chemical bonds. The molecular bonds between the molecules in your body, between the atoms within molecules, breaking bonds. That's what it's talking about here. Here's a tannin booth, the UV. Now see, here's your gamma rays. They're more energetic than X-rays. The difference between an X-ray and a gamma ray is started inside the nucleus and X-ray is outside the nucleus of an atom. That's how it's typically seen. But the frequencies are getting higher and higher and higher over here. I say people worry about frequencies getting higher over here, but that's still under visible light. This is where it's ionizing. That's where it gets dangerous. Okay, my friends? And gamma rays are what produce the EMP from a nuclear detonation. They strip the electrons off of atoms as they go through the atmosphere. It's like a ginormous, brighter than bright light because it's beyond X-rays. And it creates a huge electric wave through the atmosphere. Then these travel at the speed of light. The electrons themselves, being low mass, may not quite travel the speed of light, but they'll be going fast enough. All right, so let's go out of this. I think the X is under my picture here. There we go. Gotta move things around here to close it down. And scroll around. All right, we're not going to beat on this anymore. So that gives you a quick notion of what radiation is. And ionizing radiation, just remember that's what you worry about. Bang. So let's talk about units of radiation. You have the roentgen, the rad, and the rem. Now the roentgen is an amount of energy in the atmosphere, okay, or a cubic. It's measured by the energy produced by gamma radiation in a cubic centimeter of air, okay? And they use a capital letter R. Well, a rad is the absorbed dose. And they say, it's what you actually absorb, because what's in the air may not be absorbed. But they say in here that a rad or roentgen is about the same. Well, the rad's about the same as a roentgen. Roentgen, rad are about the same. All right, one is about the other. And a rem is the roentgen equivalent man. That's what it's going to do to you biologically. And again, 1 rad of exposure equals 1 rem of dose. So 1 rem, 1 rad, 1 roentgen. Yeah, it's just different ways of looking at it. It's like, which way am I looking at this cup, I guess. Well, no, this is in the air, this is in you, and that's what it does to you, I guess. So that, yeah, this is splitting the frog hairs, right? A lot of you hear of grays and sieverts, and so micro sieverts. So one sievert is 100 rims, technically rims. But you know, if you see rads, you know, you can just kind of do a rule of thumb transfer to that, because we're about to see that. Okay, bam. Here's where it hurts you. Here's where it hurts you. 330 to 70 rads or rims, I guess, rads. That just put out in rads. From 6 to 12 hours, none to slight incidents of transient headache, nausea, vomiting. So this does affect you. You can see this. So there's allowable exposures for emergency situations that go above these numbers, like up into here even. 70 to 150 rads from 2 to 20 hours. A transient mild nausea, vomiting. But now when you get here, you start having problems. 150 to 300 from 2 hours to 3 days. Transient moderate nausea, vomiting. 20 to 70% mild to moderate fatigability, weakness. Death may occur to a maximum of 10%. Oh yeah, so this anyway, you get bleeding, fevers, wounding, burns. Now this is where it starts getting really bad. 300 to 550 from 2 hours to 3 days. Transit to moderate nausea, vomiting. So it's not going to kill you necessarily, but death may occur at more than 50%. Okay, and you know, and here death might be 50 to 100%. And here you're in severe kimchi. Hey, kimchi's good to eat. That's a bad to pick on kimchi, right? 30 minutes to 2 days, severe nausea, vomiting, fatigue, weakness, dizziness, disorientation, moderate severe fluid imbalance, headache. We don't say what the fatality is on that, but you know, that's where it starts really cranking up. Because you know, right here is 50 to 100%. So I guess this is probably on the 100% side of the scale there. Now we can look at it in terms of sieverts here. And this scale, see this block here, this little 3 blocks equals to all of that right there. Okay. So, and what we're going to do is all of this becomes that. And then these becomes, yeah, so it translates that way. So this is sieverts, radiation dose per sieverts. Sleeping next to someone, just anyone. 0.05 microsieverts, that's pretty low. Living within 50 miles of a nuclear plant. Looks like about 1.5. There's this 0.09 microsieverts. So I guess each one of these little squares is 0.05 micros. You know, that is millionths of a sievert. That's very little. Okay, eating a banana. So eating a banana is worse than living next to 50 miles of a nuclear power plant. You get 0.1 microsieverts eating a banana. So eating a banana is worse. It's twice as bad as sleeping next to someone. Hey, I said there's a silver lining on that over mushroom cloud. You can find humor in doomsday. All right, so arm X-ray, 1 microsievert. Okay, using a CRT monitor for a year. That's standing in front of an old cathode ray tube like I used to have to. 1 microsievert. All right, over a year. Extra dose from spending 1 day in an area of higher than usual natural background radiation, such as the Colorado Plateau, 1.2 microsieverts. Hey, Rex, that's what you're getting a day in Colorado. Dental X-ray, 5 microsieverts. Look here, 4 times that, huh? 5 microsieverts from getting a dental X-ray. Background dose received by the average person over a normal day is 10 microsieverts. Okay, twice the dental X-ray. Interesting. Airplane flight from New York to LA, 40 microsieverts. Okay, that's like getting 5 dental X-rays. Chest X-ray is 20 microsieverts, about half that. Okay, and this is that. All doses. All right, so in blue fit in here. All right, so extra dose from Tokyo. Okay, living in a stone, brick, or concrete building for a year, 70 microsieverts. So it goes up, you know, and up and up and up. So over here is dose from spending an hour on the grounds at the Chernobyl plant. Oh, okay, yeah, that's 6 millisieverts. Well, now we're not micros anymore. A chest X-ray. So you're getting serious with the chest X-ray, and I've had those. 7 millisieverts. Maximum yearly dose permitted for U.S. radiation workers, is 50 milli as thousandths of a sievert. So you don't even want so many x-rays, my friend. Only so many. Well, that fits into this chart. Now, approximate total dose at one station at the northwest side of Fukushima is 40 millisieverts. 40 millisieverts compared to 50 millisieverts per year. Now, it don't say how long it takes you to get that, so that's a little bit something wrong there. Our radiation worker 1 year, 50 millisieverts. Lowest 1 year dose clearly linked to increased cancer is 100 millisieverts. That is clearly linked. That doesn't mean no amount of radiation is good for you. Please understand that. No amount of radiation is good for you. But what they clearly can prove, doesn't mean they can't prove that the others not causal too. 100 millisieverts can cause you cancer. Now, 100 millisieverts, if you come back over here, what do we say? That's 1/10 of a sievert. So that would be about 10 of these guys. Okay, wow, so you can get cancer out of this. Just lower dosage. Interesting. See what I'm saying? Severe radiation poisoning. Severe radiation poison is 2,000 millisieverts. 2,000 milli. Yeah, that's two sieverts. 2 sieverts. Now, it takes 100 sieverts, right, to make a rim. So, if I recall that correctly. So as you can see, fatal dose is 8 sieverts. Usually fatal radiation. Survival occasionally possible is 4 sieverts. Look here. Dose limit for emergency workers and life-saving operations is 250 millisieverts. And I believe that's right in this range in here. So I recall right. All right, so let's talk about blast. If you've got radiation monitors, that will be something you can consider. This is the blast effects of a 500 kiloton surface burst weapon. Now, there's 2 kinds of ways you'd be attacked if you get attacked by weapons: surface burst and air burst. Air burst is intended to take out a city and population center because it covers more area. For example, this 500 kiloton burst, it goes out to 5.6 miles. In the air, it reaches 11.2 miles in radius, a lot more area of 1 psi, the pressure difference. We're going to talk about the 10 psi is a fatal pressure difference. If you're inside this curve, the shock wave, and something can happen with a large bomb, the shock wave will take you out alone. It will turn you into jelly inside. So, as you've heard of that before, some of you have. So this is the kind of damage you get. You don't want to be inside of this. And like I say, this is total destruction, pretty much. You got fires out to 3, and you get some damage here, okay? This is not a possible fire spread all the way up here, okay? Possible fire spread. You'll still get cracked windows and such, maybe even on past there. All right. Now, I got to tell you, most of the weapon systems that we feel today are 2 megatons, bigger than all these. This is a 1 megaton. I think Russians are just now got accurate enough to scale their weapons down to 2 megatons to fit their 3 megatons used to be their standard for torpedoes, and that was their smaller one. So they were doing 5 megatons or bigger for their warheads, and maybe a lot of them may still be at 5 megatons. So these are small, maybe tactical bursts. It just gives you an idea that, hey, you don't want to be within 5.8 miles, 6.5, or even 11.2 miles in case of a I missed it. This is 1 megaton burst. I said 50 kiloton. Here's the 50 kiloton air burst, 8.8. I went down too far. Up here it's 5.6, 5.8. So you can see it's like 3 miles extra range if you detonate at 0.8 of a mile. Get higher, it'll go farther. And see, you're still doing quite a bit of damage down here over ground zero. You're destroying everything. But it's not linear. It's not linear as you scale up in bomb size because it's the inverse square law and other things. All right, so let me show you. Yeah, this is a building getting blasted. What you get is a radiation event. Let me explain this. When you get a nuclear device going off, the first thing you get is intense bright light. That's where the gamma rays are. That radiation could destroy you. You probably saw Hiroshima and Nagasaki where these devices went off. There are shadows where people had stood. They're like photographic negatives of the individual in the concrete wherever they stood. That individual was vaporized by the radiant energy. They were vaporized. The only thing left on was that image. So yeah, if you're in this area, yeah, you are going to become a photographic negative on some structure, probably. You may be probably out here. They're showing some structure standing there. So yeah, you don't want to be there. The second thing you get out of a nuclear event is a blast wave. The first thing you should do if you see a bright flash is hit the ground immediately. Do not look at it. Turn your head away from it. Cover your face and eyes, your head. Drop. Do not try to get down. Drop. Throw yourself. Jump into something, like, especially a depression, a ditch or something, because there's going to be a blast wave coming. Now, the blast wave is going to be traveling about 700 miles an hour, not the speed of light. So it's kind of like thunderstorms. You can count to 6 for every mile it is away, essentially. So you want to hit the ground. You want to get as low as you can because there's going to be a lot of debris flying over your head and a lot of wind that might roll you. Get as low as you can, as fast as you can. You want to drop or jump into a ditch, a depression, a little lower area if you can find one, but don't spend a whole lot of time at it or you're going to get caught in that blast wave. And when that blast wave passes, you're not safe because there's a back wave. It comes back. It hits you and then it comes back, okay? That's what you got to know. And this just shows the blast wave going out. This video does not show it coming back. In fact, it just shows it just where it hits this house. That's the blast wave. Bam. That's the air pressure. This is the 10 psi here. So eardrum threshold is 5 psi. Yeah, you can leave your eardrum at 5 psi. Impact lethality threshold, you could get taken out lower, but 3.3, I don't know. Impact skull fracture threshold, serious glass wound threshold, 2.3. Interesting. Impact injury, this is stuff hitting you at 1.8 psi. Skin lacerations from glass and fragments, yeah, at 1 psi. So that's where you want to be outside for that 50 kiloton air burst. You want to be out within, you want to be outside 9 miles. Yeah. Lesson: do not live in a city. Stay out of the city. Stay out of the target zones. Okay, guys. We're going to go more into that. For this stuff, you do not want to be in a target zone. I'll show you some target maps in a little bit. All right, let's go to the next one. This one is more the scale of the Soviet weapons. Oh yeah, oh yeah. Why would they do a surface burst? I didn't mention that. If they're going after a target, especially a real hardened target, they're going to go underground, like the missile silos, military targets, airfields. You hit an airfield, you'll hit on the ground. You're going to hit the ground because you're going to destroy the airfield. If there's a hardened target or a target they want to take out, a bridge, a dam, a power plant, if it's a like I said, military base, they're going on the ground. If it's bunkers or an arsenal, it's going to be on the ground. So the third thing I didn't mention, I said there's 3 things you got to worry about with a blast. I said there's that light, the flash, and then there's the blast wave. Well, the other thing is the fallout, and the fallout is worse from a surface burst. Something hits the ground because it's going to pick all that dirt up and take it up in the atmosphere, and that dirt's going to be ionized, made radioactive, and it's going to fall out on you. Of course, whatever the products of the bomb itself were will be radioactive, and they'll produce fallout too. And even with the air burst, there'll be some, because this is going to create a big heat vacuum up here. It will suck some stuff up, but it won't be near as bad as a surface burst. If you had enough surface burst, that might be where you'd get, some global cooling kind of effect, nuclear winter they talk about. So this is again a 5 megaton blast, and again they're showing about 9 miles to have that 0 to 1.5 psi. So the 1 psi would be somewhere. I've seen things saying like you need to be like 12 miles away. So there's many different charts that show this, to pick what it could look like, and that is for this is the ground burst here, obviously. So air burst higher up. So you probably want to be really 12 miles away. This is a SAR bomber, and then you got to be a lot farther away from the star bomber. That's a 100 megaton device the Russians have. Hey, see, at first you might not feel anything, and then you might be kicking over soon. All right. So this talks about some of the radiation sickness. We're going to get out of this one. And oh yeah, this is where we got all the monitoring up north. I mentioned that. Hey, I just did a video. You need to go see it. See the video I just did on World War III with Russia. How they've got the Sarmat missile, the Satan II, that was coming up from our south. We don't have anything monitoring it. That's a very important video, and I posted it real late last night, so I didn't get a lot of views. Fallout mount. We're going to show better fallout mounts. So there's no point in me showing all this older stuff here too much. I just wanted you to see in this chart this blast here. Yeah. Get this to another. All right, fallout. I mentioned fallout. Look here. Here's a 1 megaton surface burst. There's Mount Whitney. Okay, give you some idea of scale. Typical thunderstorm, and here's your tropopause. The atmosphere, stratosphere is up here. This is actually troposphere. So these are miles up, my friends. 15, 12 miles up, maybe 12, 13 miles. 1 megaton blast. That's high. You'll be able to see that for a long distance. Long distance. Do not look at it. Do not look at it. Actually, we were trained to look at them after the initial burst died down so that we could estimate the, between that and the report of it, we would be able to estimate the yield of the weapon. And based on that, we were going to estimate the size of the fallout patterns. You check the winds, the yield, and then we could estimate what kind of fallout to expect and what the arrival time. So we'd know if we can make a cross. This is what we trained for in our military, was to operate in a nuclear war. I want to get across here. How long do I have to cross this without some radioactive effect? And if I had to cross it after some of the stuff is falling on the ground already, they told us to put sandbags in the bottom of the Jeep. Back then we had Jeeps, the Humvees. So this is your 200 kiloturn bust. This is a 1 megaturn bust. So we got 14 hours till it all settles out. So the good thing is this doesn't cover the entire world. Okay, it's going to be this kind of pattern down whatever wind direction is occurring at that time. Of course, as you get different altitudes and different winds, it might scatter around a little bit. You get way up the jet stream with some bigger bursts, right? So there's that to worry about. But this tells you, how many per hour, how many rads. This is rads per hour. So it also tells you how long you want to stay in that area to stay below a certain threshold. And this is miles from ground zero. So here we're looking at 210 miles here, and here we're looking at 120 maybe. I just showed the Sarbama last night, and you were looking about 2,000 miles for this and the Sarbama. Well, maybe 1,500. Yeah, it goes. It's crazy. That's a crazy device. So I wanted you to see this, and I'll show it to you in another depiction here. Here's another image of what was measured when they were doing some of the Bikini Atoll test. Okay, here you are, miles. Here, 280. We saw some good sized devices there. And how long it took to get there, how many miles, like 16 hours, started getting close to some of these other islands. Of course, these islands, took it pretty good. So there's operating time. And the other good news is that, where is it? I'll find it. Let's get out of this. The radiation actually dies off. Where's that at? You got a halftime of your radiation. Essentially, the good news is if it's a nuclear war, and this is why I'm going to show you the difference between a nuclear war and what goes on with a power plant. And I'm not sure any of these cover what I want to talk about. With a nuclear war, the radiation, now all radiation has a half-life. So the nuclear war, what happens is that radiation dies down, and significantly it starts dropping real fast, and then kind of goes out asymptotically. After a week, you might get out and move around. After a nuclear war, after 2 weeks, it's really pretty safe. Really, as long as you're not at ground zero is going to be a pretty bad place. And you still would want to try to figure out where that ground track was and stay out of the worst areas for a while. But for the most part, you can move around. That is the good news about a nuclear war, is the half-life of the radiation. The bad news about the nuclear power plants is once they start burning, That stuff's going to be given off for a long time. It don't all come out at once. It takes a long time for all that to burn off. And so they're a gift that just keeps on giving. And the sad thing about it is they got about 300 times more radioactive material than all the nuclear warheads on Earth. Yeah, that's why they can give bad and keep giving bad for a long time. That's the problem with nuclear power plants, and especially the spent fuel rod bolts where most of that stuff's at. On the outside of the containment building, believe it or not, what's in coolant pools? It's 120 foot of water, well, but it evaporates 160 gallons a minute. So as soon as the power goes out, you know, and the backup generators run out of fuel and they can't be refueled because you can't get fuel to them because all the truck stops have stopped because there's no power to pump fuel to run them. At some point, everything starts unraveling and you won't be able to maintain the coolant. That's the problem with them. So this is a nuclear target map, a typical one. So if you live in a red zone here, you might want to think twice about staying there. Hey guys, down in well, we know San Diego's got a lot of naval bases. There's a lot of coastal port facilities. Hey, look, Northern California and some places along Oregon may not be so bad. If you're in the mountains high enough that tidal wave from the Cascadia don't get you, or the Starbama Poseidon torpedo. Again, see my video on Russia, the World War III, poking at Putin. There's a bear as bad as we thought. Depending on where you look at the thumbnail or the title. This is another idea of how the fallout may go in a large-scale nuclear war. The biggest fallout would come from where we have strategic underground missile silos, because they will hit the heck out of them. One place they're not showing is really Colorado's NORAD facility. It would get hammered hard too. And these are other military bases that they think would get, I don't know why they're showing that. And this should be right about here, because that would be Warner Robins Air Force Base probably. Some of these Air Force bases, naval bases right here would probably get hit, probably a little bit more on the East Coast. So this is a target where they're looking at mostly military targets, I suppose. So what you're going to get, this is a sample radioactive fallout. It depends on what somebody attacking us decides to target and which way the winds are blowing when they hit us, which could vary significantly. Here's another sample that looks quite a bit different than that one. See? It shows how much radiation. But 1 to 2 weeks, shelter occupancy followed by discrimination in exceptional areas. That means you can come out some after a couple of weeks, but be careful. That's for the, maybe that sheet of pink. I guess the real red is you hide, you stay in. But you know, this is, you know, showing a little bit different wind pattern. But you know, hey guys, there's certain areas that just are not looking all that wonderful. Okay. The West generally does better. Generally, because there's so many people here living here, so many targets. The same kind of thing with the nuclear power plants. Okay, so let's give you an idea of where you don't want to be. Just give you an idea. I'm not even have to draw maps. They're here for us, guys. What does this give you an idea? And you don't want to be right here. You don't want to be right here, here. So this might give you an idea of what may not be the best places to be, but you can survive in these areas if you build the appropriate shelters. We're going to go into shelters in a moment. So, yeah, I'm going a bit long. There's a lot to cover here. This is another target fallout map. And we're looking pretty good here in North Alabama there. I'm heading out to Arizona. And let's go down here. This one has all the winds going purely west to east instead of moving around like maybe they're often to do. So you can see there's different concepts for what this might do and how it might play. I mean, I'm looking good here and where I'm at sitting right here in the moment, but they're not good at all. Yeah, there are some bases in Arkansas, so I'm not good at all. But I think that some of these might be getting decommissioned. They're moving things around. Some of the things that used to be targets are not as big a targets now. China might have different priorities than Russia. If they both attack us, holy smoking guacamole. And this is a different target map and potential radiation level map. So that's just a different look, different view of the same enchilada. All right, so this is what happens with a nuclear war. These are targets. Yeah, there's so many people here. That's why those are heavy targeted. People, military bases. Fort Greely, or Fairbanks, that's Fairbanks actually. Which has the Austin Air Force Base. That's what that is. That's awesome. Show Emmendorf. That's interesting. That's Austin Air Force Base. Yeah, Fort Greely will be a target on there now because it's got the missile defense. So yeah, this is heavy. Now, nuclear power plants. I've done a couple of videos where I've talked about what could happen with the nuclear power plants. And in the consequences video, I go into some detail and I show you how these fuel rods have been shown to burn when they make contact with air. A test done by Sandia National Laboratories in which they burnt slap up. I've had some nuclear guy was telling me, "Oh no, Greg, that can't happen. It's impossible." Oh no, it not only is possible, it's been absolutely confirmed in test. So yeah, there's so many experts out there. Well, the test data says, bam, it happens. So that's good. That tells me what I need to know. And it's, there's also what they projected, and it happened, pretty much the way they modeled it and thought it occurred. So there are 300 times more nuclear material in the spent fuel rod pools, the cooling pools sitting outside the containment building on the nuclear power plants than there are in the warheads in the world. So just if you totally neglect the reactors, everybody talks about the nuclear reactors going in meltdown. Yeah, it's a bad day. I'm ignoring that. Yeah, that is a bad day. And every one of these dots has a reactor and can give you a bad day just from the reactor. But they might be able to shoot enough boron in there if they know it's enough in advance to stop that. Of course, if they get hit with a nuke, yeah, they're going to vaporize. But they might be able to shoot enough boron in there to stop, at least the neutrons. And of course, that will hose the plant forever, and that's why they don't want to do that typically. But if you know you're about to lose the bread, that's what they ought to do. They need to put that in the protocol. For the reactor, spent fuel rod pools, you're going to have to keep water on them. And you really need to keep water in the reactor itself, too. But there's the most, if you can cover the spent fuel rod pools, you can cover the reactor. Okay, that's why I keep talking about spent fuel rod pools, because everybody wants to ignore it. That's where the most of the stuff is. And yeah, you're talking something that will take a, well, of course, that Sandia test, they burn up and slap up right off the bat. But, I think a lot of that fuel is so heavy, a lot's going to pull and glop together and take a while to burn. If you get like 300 nuclear wars all at once, hang it up. Of course, it might be you can just hunker down for a month or two and come out and be all right. If it all happened at once and got it over with. But I think this is going to be a gift that's going to keep giving. Look at Fukushima. Still, it keeps spewing, keeps spewing, keeps spewing, keeps spewing. And, the projections are they'll do that for tens of, decades, for several decades, maybe 100 years. So that is a problem for survival. I mean, you can't live on the ground for 100 years. So what do? Well, one, you stay out of the areas where this is going to be the worst. Now, darn well that you get something like cesium-137 is going to travel around the world. So you're going to get some of that stuff moving around. But hopefully it's enough that we can survive. We'll talk about overall survival strategies as we get into this for longer term too. So if this thing will let me change screens. Here we go. Now here's the other map. I'm not having to draw maps today. The maps are drawn for us. I did my Bugout map in a recent video. This map shows, now I can come back and combine all this in a future video, right? This shows, now some of these yellow circles are plants that never were even put into business. Now it turns out, like this one, Bellefonte, they're now talking about that it's been sold to a private company who says they're going to build a plant here. So this red, this yellow may go red. I hope not, but it may actually go red. But look here, these are Tennessee Valley Authority plants around Chattanooga. This is Browns Ferry, which is about 26 miles from me, where I'm at now. This is a plant down in Dothan, Alabama. This is plants in Louisiana, Mississippi, Texas, Arizona. Each dot is a reactor. California, each dot is a reactor. So look up the East Coast here. Now, where are they real thick? Right in here, my friends. Right in here, up in here. Wow. Upper Wisconsin might be all right from this, but once you hunker down long enough for all the radiation from these guys that, you know, if you're in a war, if there is a war, a nuclear war, and these areas are hit by intercontinental ballistic missiles that attack, these are intercontinental ballistic missiles. Of course, there's Cheyenne Mountain in Colorado. They would hit too. So you would have massive radiation coming out from those areas. But in a couple of weeks, most of it be gone. So then you would have to worry about these plants, because after a nuclear war, there'll be a lot of EMP. I would expect these plants to go off. I expect the first event in a nuclear war would be to hit us with an EMP. So you can see all these plants going off. Greg, we don't have to worry about a nuclear war, you might say. So we don't have to worry about this. Well, the sad thing is the sun can do this to us. The sun can cause our grid to fail in such a massive way that our entire grid will go down. And it doesn't take a Carrington event to do it, which we had back in 1859. A railroad event like occurred in 1921 could do it. And it may be as Earth's magnetic field drops in strength that an event like occurred in 1989, the Quebec event could do it, or even a smaller event. Our shield is dropping. And it's just a matter of time. It's just a matter of time if we fail to harden the grid, and if we don't do something about these spent fuel rod pulls. So this is the event you're facing. This event is almost certain, and it's the worst event. This is almost certain and is the worst event. This is worse than a full-scale nuclear war. And the sun will do it to us if we don't do something about it. That is what makes me totally incredulous. So many people say, oh, Greg, the deep state's going to do it to us. All the deep state has to do this to us has to do what they're doing right now. Nothing. Nothing at all. If they do nothing at all and they keep doing nothing, this is what our future looks like. That's why I do this. I'm fighting it, friends. I'm fighting it. And we need to force them to get our grid hardened. We need to force them. No, they haven't done it yet. They're doing some studies. There's been some things that Trump Commission we saw in the study phase. And the NERC and FERC, which are the agencies that are supposed to be in charge of utilities, are doing nothing. And they got their EFRI organization out, trying to run defense for them. I mentioned this in other videos. I don't want to go all into the details of that. See my other videos on power grid defense and about the threats from the sun if you want to understand what I'm talking about here. But this can be fixed, but we're not going to talk anymore about the fixes of this in this video. We're going to talk about what you've got to do to survive it. Okay. I'm just making a point there. But yeah, that's an ugly picture. Now, it may not be quite, well, is it really that far? That says circles are, typically they say a 50-mile circle. A 50-mile circle would be more like this. These circles are a little bit bigger than a 50-mile circle. If your 50-mile circle would be this big, okay? But over time, as they keep giving, yeah, that's not too far off. So let's go look at what happened at Fukushima. Fukushima, this is just a few months after it went off. This is where the radiation was, okay? And it shows you the radiation levels. Okay. But given a little more time, yeah, this is another map. This one was dated the 10th of April 2011. Yeah, same went off in March, right? 11 March to 2011. So let's go back, because the winds hadn't had time yet to spread it around here. So it's all still the initial wind, but it just keeps giving. So how did that look? How did that pan out? Now these charts are still old in here. There's nothing too recent, unfortunately. See, you see what's happening? Well, they have a predominant wind still blowing that way, but this stuff's spreading around all over the island in that area. That's what this is showing. And over time, it'll keep spreading, and so this red. See, remember the red was right there. This red is going to, get a bigger and bigger swath of all of this. So, yeah. But hey, there's people living not too far from Chernobyl, but only because Chernobyl got stopped by some brave souls in Russia who committed suicide, basically to stop it. So what do you need to know about this radiation? Well, my friends, it can be stopped. The radiation itself can be stopped. All right, so here is gamma rays. Okay, this is showing how to create shielding with packed earth. Now, the density of material affects its effectivity. Water is not quite as good as the packed earth, And lead, of course, is the most effective. A much thinner sheet of lead would protect you than all this. So to give you an example, this is 32 gamma rays, and it's divided into blocks of earth that are packed earth that are 18 inches thick. So this is 1.5 feet, and this is showing 3-inch sections of that, how much is stopped as you go through by the gamma rays. By the time you get through, by the time you get all the way through 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of these 3.6-inch slabs of packed earth, and it can all be together. It's just for illustration. You're only getting 1 through out of 32, and that's not so bad all over. 1 out of 32. This is survivable. Now, what I'm going to show you is I've seen habitats or concepts for building shelters that depicted this using concrete blocks. These bigger blocks, you know, that, yeah, which one do that? These are the blocks that are these are the bigger masonry concrete blocks, not the smaller ones. How to get out of the image there? Let me get back on this. That one, I don't go too far back. These are a foot. I want to show you. It keeps moving around. Oh, so let me just tell you here. They're 1 foot by 8 inches by 16 inches. So they're 16 inches long, 1 foot deep, okay, and 18 tall. That's what that boils down to. I just wanted to show you. The tall is along that axis. Okay, the depth is along that axis. So one of these gets a long way toward being that. You know, you get 1 foot in here. It's 18 inches, right? So, but the shelter was depicted using 2 of these, or you can use sandbags. You can do this with sandbags. Sandbags are typically about 1 foot, and you get some that are actually 18 inches wide. You can do this with sandbags. In fact, I got a concept for building a home with basically sandbags. So sandbags will absolutely cover this, and so will these. Now, it may not be packed as deep. That's why you probably want 2 foot of this instead of 18 inches. So just remember, you want at least 2 foot of earth. You'll pack it as dense as you can, even in a sandbag. Or if you're pouring sand in here, tamp it down. That's what they were showing us one habitat concept I saw for surviving a nuke, or a shelter, I should say, above ground shelter. Actually, it was above ground shelter just for surviving the radiation, not the blast. So there's a lot of books out here on fallout shelters. And the concept I saw looked kind of like this, except it didn't have something in the middle. It just had 2 levels of block. And the big thing is you've got to have your entrance can't be direct. There's a better depiction somewhere. I'll show you, I think, in one of these videos. You want to have Azerbaijan. Wow, the word about nuclear war in Azerbaijan. So it shows building above ground block structure here. There's the government put out lots of reports. And that's the cool thing about all this. This one is kind of an underground version. Hey, you got a nice little patio above here, and you know, not everybody knows that you could tie that with a sofa or some kind of box, and that could be your entrance to get in. You got a bunch of beds in the bunker down below, right? You definitely want a couple feet of stuff up here, and you better figure out how to drain that and get air into it. Guess what though? Look at this. That's a 50s bunker. Yeah, it's a little bit rusted out now. 10 minutes to midnight. Happy couple. Economy, family type. Yeah, this one's an above ground shelter. Now look at, now we get into making bomb shelters sexy. Who knew nuclear war would be so sexy? Told you there was a silver lining in the ever mushroom cloud. Now see, a lot of concepts are for building these like in your basement. Going in your basement, put a couple, build this out, put in your a wall, put ceiling joists across here, ceiling planks, and just stack blocks up. You don't even have to use mortar. You can stack them up in there. The mortar might keep the wall from falling in on you. They show some air vents down here. But you got to remember, you got to keep the air moving. They also show the entrance is here, but in front of the entrance is a radiation block, a wall to block that. That's what I'm trying to get to here. I'm hunting a depiction of that. And, you know, listen, these radiation shelters can also serve as storm shelters. They got dual use. Okay. And just looks like a regular storm shelter to me right there, right? A storm shelter might be good enough. Here's one using sandbags. That's just a block cut with a tin roof on it, and a bunch of sandbags on top, and sandbags around, and sandbags in front of the entrance. Those aren't high enough though, and probably not close enough. And I'd want them covering another way too. That may be just for mortar rounds. That would probably do the job. And there's a lot of concepts for going in the ground. If you got to dig it out of a ditch, have a little slope there to it, and put some logs in it, and have a cross brace notched in. We got a nail in there, and we got nails in here, a piece in here, notch. There's what's holding the dirt back from the top. This is holding these from closing in on you, and then they got this on top of it, keep all this dirt, and they're showing 3 foot of earth on top. So 3 foot's better than 2 foot. So this is how you can do it quick and dirty in the ground using logs, okay, or poles. Not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. All right. This article says, hey, even root cellars can be used as a bunker. And I've seen some videos recently about building root cellars with sandbags. There you go. Again, sandbags themselves might work above ground if you put enough of them in there. Of course, you'd want to throw some dirt up against the back of them if you could. What do we got here? I have to do another, I don't know what. Oh, this is maps. Here we go. This is your decay. I knew I had this somewhere. This is how fast the radiation decays. You see, this is hours. See, this is instantly within the first, 4 hours. Ooh, first couple of hours. Yeah, it's like off the charts here. 1,000 rads per hour. Yeah, that's deadly. That's deadly. 7 hours. 43 rads per hour. That's deadly. But it drops off. Here you got 10 rads per hour after 48 hours. Well, after 2 weeks, it drops off even more. Don't drop off as fast, but it keeps dropping. A week, you might get around if you have to. But if you can stay bunkered in for 2 weeks after a nuclear war, you're better off. So we're going to talk about time after detonation. You see how it drops? Doom, doom, doom. Fast. Drops off fast. The radiation level drops fast. That's what I'm talking about. I thought I had this earlier in my presentation. Just didn't have it ordered right. All right, my friends. This gives you some of the notions here of different things out there. And let's stop this here. Let's talk about some other stuff here. All right. Your bunkers, operations, your farm. So first and most, don't live in a city for many reasons. I've said many times, if you're in a city, get out. Get out now. Get your homestead. I'm gonna do another share in a minute. I will do another share in a moment. We got something else to look at. Habitats. Don't live in the city. Don't live too close to the military base. Don't live too close to a nuclear power plant. The farther you can get away, the better. I'm 26 miles from one now. What that means, though, is the heavier particles will fall out closer to the plant, the most radioactive ones. The worst thing about radiation is if you ingest it into your body. If that particle lodges in your body, it's going to stay there and keep radiating. It might have been something that's alpha emitter that would stop on the outside. Once you get it on the inside, it's going to sit there and irradiate you. You're stuck with it. There are some of these. One reason to take iodine is that some of them do get in your what do you call it? Your what's that organ that starts with the T? You know what I'm talking about. The iodine protects that. And then there's I get brain lock. Excuse me, guys. I have one of the other words that's jumping in my mind right now, blocking what I'm supposed to say, but it'll come to me later. I keep thinking thorax, like a part of a bug. And then my Strontium, which is another radioactive material. So I'm totally missing it here. But all that aside, you're probably screaming, Greg, it's yeah, okay, I'll get it in a minute. So the other thing is strontium 90 is particularly nasty. Now if you eat radioactive contaminated fish, you might get strontium-90, because strontium-90 has an affinity for calcium. It has the same valence level of electrons as calcium. So your body is going to absorb the strontium-90 into your bones, and then it's set there, and it's just going to radiate you and give you bone cancer and blood cancer and all kind of nasty stuff. Leukemia. Yeah, you don't want strontium-90 in you. Don't be eating fish bones after one of these radioactive releases, okay, or anything that's got calcium in it. But you're best off being careful what you ingest. Okay, how do you survive the farm? There's people living in Chernobyl now in that area. They're not supposed to be there, but there's still something hung on. And, you know, the cancer rates are up, but there's people sometimes live for a fair bit of time living in there. But like I said, Chernobyl would have been a lot worse if it hadn't been kept by some heroes. He committed suicide to fly over with helicopters and drop concrete in. And these guys died later because they got so much radiation exposed. Kind of Spock in, you know, Wrath of Khan, except they didn't get to come back from going to some proto-matter planet. They're gone. Yeah, that's one of their true heroes. The thing is that there's ways to protect from radiation on the farm. Okay, one, a barn. Put your animals inside a building like a barn. If you got the old-fashioned barns, the hay loft, you're better off because all that hay is matter. The more mass above you and around you, the better off you are. Like where I'm sitting right now, I got a bookshelf behind me, and there's a garage over there with stuff in it. I've got a desk here. There's not much on this wall, but on the other side of that wall is a 300-gallon container of water with the aquaponics system. If I duck down under this table, that's going to protect me in that direction. I got a desk here full of material. I got a filing cabinet here. I got a desk here. Like I said, once I drop under this desk, I got 2 drawers. I'm protecting those, but straight out, not as good. But I do have other stuff out there, but not as much. Overhead, in the room above me is a big desk, and there's a roof. All that matter gives me some levels of protection. If you're in a building, get as close to the core as you can. In a really big building, skyscraper, the closer to the core, it's not like tornado safety, the better off you are. Back to the livestock. Throw dirt, dung, whatever, manure up against the walls of your barn if you know something's about to happen, if we're imminent. And have been there with a hay, that'll protect your animals for a period of time. Hopefully you get some hay from them, some water to keep them going for a while. And if they can stay in that barn a week or 2, they're going to be a lot better off. Now, your house, the roof of it may have radioactive fallout settled on it. If you can get up there with a hose, you can spray that stuff off and let it go to the ground and wash away. You might not be radiated from the top. A greenhouse, if you can spray down the top of the greenhouse and get that stuff off the greenhouse. Your garden beds, if you can cover them up with a tarp to keep the fallout from falling on top. Your compost piles, cover that up. Worm beds, cover that up. Cover everything you can with tarps or anything you can. Buy a bunch of tarps for these purposes. That way, after the fallout stops, you can remove these tarps and that will be gone. As far as something keeps giving like a nuclear power plant, yeah, that's going to be harder because, you know, you might have a permanent cover for your compost, your worms, but plants need sunlight unless you're growing stuff indoors. Maybe the real solution is to be able to grow things indoors, but you got to have power for that. So maybe you got to have solar arrays or something because the power grid's going to be down. You got to have some of the means of generating power on a long-term reliable basis. Really long-term if it's the nuke plants, because you don't want to be out more than you have to be. You'll be out some, but it's going to be a pickle. So you could, with having wall of peating greenhouses or just greenhouses, you just wash the roof off with hose. If you can grow everything in a greenhouse, you're better off because that means it won't get directly contaminated. If you're watering from water out of the ground, you're better off. Well water, because that radiation is not going that deep. So if you got well water, if you got a greenhouse, you're way ahead of the curve. Way ahead of the curve. That's where I'm at now. But you got to have power to run that well, or you got to have some other pump. And you might be able to do a lot of pumping. But that may be what it's going to take. If you're in your fallout shelter waiting for all the radiation to go over, have something to do. Have some books to read, because this is a good time to study and brush up on skills you may not have had time to study, and things that you had to, well, skills don't come from reading. They come from exercise, being engaged. But at least you can read up, bone up on a lot of material And as soon as you can get out and about, then you can start putting some of that in action. You know, you could indoors of a fallout shelter, set up a target and use a blowgun, for example, to do a little practice. That's a target you could use indoors. It's not like the bang bang targets. So that's something you could do. Practice your silent hunting. Maybe get a little exercise. Have a punching bag. You don't want to practice fire making skills indoors, but there's some things you could do. There's some things you can study. You're not going to be on the internet probably. You may never see internet again. So watch all the videos you can while you can. But you know, at that point, gone. Bye-bye. Have books. All right. And I'm planning to do some courses on this stuff down the road. And I'll do some courses on online courses about raising worms, about prepper gardening, grid down gardening, about EMP, you know, how to survive an EMP, how to survive a nuclear war, bug out stuff. I'll do more courses. I'll do courses on this kind of stuff down the road. And I've already got a book pretty much on worm raising. So there'll be more books. I'll put some books out and different things in time. So I'm going to do another show with you real quick. I'm going to show you another kind of habitat that will work just fine for you. You may have seen this in a few videos, right? I've done some videos on this. I've done it on this channel. I've done them with our good friend Rex Bear. And it is right there. This is my universal habitat concept. This is to be, you could do it with concrete. You could do it with 3D printers. You can put tires down and pound them full of dirt to make these walls, or sandbags. I don't care. I'm not particular. The key thing is to have enough thermal mass. They should ideally be a couple foot thick and maybe have dirt bermed up against them. And then you have dirt here, 18 inches a foot thick. And you can have another ceiling over here. For this one, I'm showing some skylights to let some of the sun through. In part of this roof, but that's not necessary. And then I'm showing a greenhouse roof. Remember what I said? You can wash that off, right? But so this is radiation proof. Oops, I changed. I didn't mean to do that yet. Uh-oh, I'm getting away from myself. This habitat, if I'm looking at it right through here on the side, that would be, I'm going wrong direction. That would be like looking across this way. So there's more area in the depth in this one because this is a hexagon. And this is based on a 1/10 of an acre habitat, based on the DeVace family, who grew all the food they needed except for grain products and made a living from just the gardening. And that gardening area is going this area and this area alone. I've added a little bit extra to it here. And I added a whole workshop that's half as big. I'm going on the ceiling. So having roofs aren't used. We got solar power. Look, this habitat would be able to survive anything but a direct hit, basically. And you could handle the radiation in here. You can live in here. You can grow food and be comfortable to a large degree. You might get a little cabin fever over time. But at least you could walk around and see different things. And you can connect these. You know, we can build cities and communities. We're all interconnected. And we can have greenhouses connecting to them too, and different things. So we can have activities. So I've got the solar panel here. I'm not going to go all into this habitat here. Suffice it to say, I will do another video on this soon, on this habitat. I've drawn it out rectangular form too. This is it in a rectangular form, showing a road in front of it. And this is about 90 foot here, 10-foot road. And whoa, I keep skipping around. What in the world's happening here? So it's about 46 foot wide. And this is this is showing it with a terrace behind it, growing behind it too. A couple of levels are growing here. Why we got this terrace on it? Because this is actually that radiation. Got a bunch of terraces. What? Because this is a part of that, which is part of my Venus habitat floating in the atmosphere. Greg, stop that. Okay. Yeah, his little homes are right there. So my little home for Earth, I got it on Venus. Oh yeah, I got a simulation of this on Mars. That's why I call it my universal habitat. Work anywhere. It's the best thing you can put on Earth. Anywhere on Earth. In the Earth, in the dirt, Moon, Mars. Let me get out of this. You didn't know I was going to take you to the moon, to Mars and Venus today, did you? Well, that's just it. If we, guys, everybody says, Greg, you're all dim and gloom. Well, if we survive, that's what we can go. We can, the universe is open to us. There's wide, beautiful possibilities if we can just survive this day and age we're in. We just got to get through what we're in today. We got to survive it. Hopefully, we prevent these things from taking place. And I'm working on that. And I will do more on this in the future, but working on it. Right now, I got some more immediate concerns, and we were building survival network, survival tribe network, and we're starting our Freedom Restoration Foundation. It's already started, actually. We're setting up a website for it. And if you want to join the Freedom Restoration Foundation, email me at info@freedomrestorationfoundation.org and put freedom in the subject line. If you want to join my survival tribe groups, put tribes in the subject line. My power grid defense site got taken down by GoDaddy. I don't know why they should have taken it down. They really messed all my websites up. I took my worm site down, but they put something else in there. It's like, really? I called them and told them to fix it. Oh, we got it fixed. And I went back, no, it wasn't fixed. So GoDaddy is not satisfying me right now. But we'll be doing more on this. I am now the state director for Alabama for Dr. Peter Vincent Price Homeland Defense Organization, and Power Grid and Homeland Defense, not part of the Department of Homeland Defense by any means. No. We're not for the deep state, my friends. The deep state is what's getting in our way as we're trying to get things fixed. So we're trying to fix that. All right, I've gone long. So suffice it to say, what I've done here is I have taught you the different forms of radiation. I have taught you the different threats from nuclear war and the nuclear power plants and their spent fuel rod pools. I have covered I've covered what the fallout patterns look like, where you've got to avoid, you hunker down to avoid the fallout for a couple of weeks. I've covered shelters. I've covered the nuclear power plants and what areas you need to be out for that. And I've covered shelters. I have talked about different kind of shelters you can live in. I've talked about strategies to live, in terms of your greenhouses, your compost, your garden, your animals, yourself in your own house. If you can't get out and get a shelter, I mean, if it happens tomorrow morning, you don't have time to build a shelter, find these places where you got the most matter to protect you. And for me, the best place in my home is where I'm sitting right now. And I got a few feet here to work in, and that's about it. So, yeah, I think I would get ducked down really low and stay on the floor. Maybe pull something over on top of me. Packed a bunch of stuff under my desk here in that direction. I know I got a lot of matter in these other directions. So, if the more matter you've got to block these gamma rays and things like that, the better off you are. Now, gamma rays are also the things that cause cosmic rays cause the cloud nucleation. Cosmic rays, I didn't go into that. Those are accelerated atomic particles that are accelerated to 10th or more, or maybe even 9/10 the speed of light. Worst, of course, being the iron nuclei, but it doesn't take an iron nuclei to be very energetic. These cause, they hit other atoms in the Earth's atmosphere and break them up and cause them to become ionizing particles. And they hit other atoms, and it cascades for a while before it plays out. That's what the patterns you see when they draw a cosmic ray. Looks like it's just shooting out like that. Well, it's not. That's all the secondary particles it creates. And those ionized particles cause cloud nucleation, and that's what causes the increase the albedo of Earth in a solar minimum. That kind of cools things down a little bit. There you go. Now you understand that. So we've covered a lot of ground. But we've covered ground to keep you around. So it is survival. If you're not in ground zero, yeah. If you're standing on the ground, you hear something, you can look up and it goes bam. Of course, it happens fast, you won't hear anything. But if you're standing at ground zero, you will. If you're lucky, it'll be a photographic image that somebody will discover some years later. There was a person here. Get out of the cities. Get out of the cities. That's the most important thing you can do for any prepping. Get out of the city. Get out. leave. And in terms of your personal life, get off the grid. Go off grid. Homestead. But if it happens today, right now, know to duck down within the stuff you've got, get in the center of the biggest building, go to the basements, get as deep down as you can within a building structure. If you're got a blast away, the top of it's liable to get knocked off anyway. Like I said, don't be ground zero. If you're ground zero, you're just toast. When I was at work at Arsenal, in the days when I was, when we were working on that base, the building I worked in had a basement. I was figuring I was going to run down and get to one of the walls closest to the ground, on that side. And I had a bunch of buckets, my coffee cans. I was going to grab. I had them in a bag. I was going to grab that bag and run down. And the first chance I got, I was going to fill all of them up with water, so I'd have water for a while. That's how I used the bag. Used up the water. I was going to, take care of other business and the ones that I had to empty it out. And that was kind of my strategy for getting by a couple of weeks underground and building 4203 to Marshall Space Flight Center. You got to survive somehow, guys. And, consider the plumbing ain't going to be working. You might have water a little bit initially, but after that, it'll be gone. So get it while you can. Just remember that. Get your water. So right now, we've got a lot of tension with us and Iran, China, and Russia, and Korea, North Korea. That could lead to these kind of things. The sun is coming out of a sleep cycle, and it seems to be swinging as our magnetic sphere is, our shields are down. So get ready, prepare. And think about what you got to do if it happens right now, and prepare as much as you can to be in a better position if it happens a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4. How long do you have? I don't know. I have no idea. A lot of people having various prophecies, visions, and ideas that all this stuff's going to happen by this coming year or 2024. I'm hearing all kinds of things out there. And maybe it won't happen at all. Pray and hope for the best. Remember, I've done these videos about universe and the solar cup, in which I've explained why the power of prayer works. And prayer, meditation, you go into the timeline that you think of, the way you think, what you believe, what you think of determines a lot of your future, your reality. So let's be positive. Think about things that will work for you. Hope and pray for the best, but still prepare for the worst. Call that insurance. You do take out insurance, don't you? Same thing. All right, my friends. What I want you to say is, Greg, I'm ready to duck and cover. That's kind of what that is, ain't it? Cover with all the radiation children. It's a little bit more than just, get kids in school doing that. But if you say, Greg, I'm ready to duck and cover, I know you watched it to this point. And I really appreciate when I read comments, when people are telling me those kind of things. And I know they've watched it. So, my friends, we've gone long, but we had a lot to cover. We didn't duck, did we? All right, my friends. With all that, I'm going to say, take care, live long, and prosper. And I hope we all do, really. And I hope everyone has a wonderful 2021. Thank you, my friends, and goodbye.